You're listening to the Redefining Wealth Podcast with Patrice Washington. And I'm so excited to have you back and to have you here for this very special episode. I don't remember a time when I have actually on the podcast shared an intimate conversation, a full masterclass from one of our virtual events that we do for students. Last month, you may have heard me talking about Prosper Summit, which is a 2-day event that I do for members of the Institute for Redefining Wealth. But there was one conversation that was so powerful, so potent. It just underscored what we believe here. When we say chase purpose, not money, we're not saying that money is not important. But what we are saying is that if you feel like you have to chase money, it is because you're looking at life through a lens of scarcity and not enoughness, as opposed to knowing that you could make choices rooted in faith, which comes from abundance. And I know no woman who talks about abundance better and more eloquently using the power of her story than Cathy Heller. But at Prosper Summit 2025, Cathy shared some parts of her story that she honestly does not share anywhere else. And she gave me permission to share it publicly. And I said, girl, I'm going to do it. Because she's talking about divine disruptions and how so many disruptions in her life, things that didn't feel like they made sense at the time, have literally led her to creating this incredibly powerful global community, over 50 million downloads on her podcast, so many clients served, so many lives changed. Her book is currently the book that we are reading in the Redefining Wealth app and community, Abundant Ever After. And I just thought, I want to share this more widely. You need to hear this. And so today is all about divine disruptions. I also want you to know Cathy does have a training that is happening right now. Now, it's already started. It may have already passed at the time that this airs, but I believe you'll still be able to get access to the replays. And if you can, sit at her feet virtually and learn from her. This is a great opportunity to do. So go to patricewashington.com/abundant. That's patricewashington.com/abundant. And you'll get access to Cathy's Manifest Your Most Abundant Year free 3-day workshop. Go get all of the replays because the reality is you probably don't need to do more. You need to learn how to receive. And Cathy's workshop is not just about hustling harder or feeling like you have to prove your worth at every turn. It's about shifting your frequency, opening up your field, and aligning with divine timing, even when you feel like disruptions are what you're experiencing in your current life. So patricewashington.com/abundant, go get you some more Cathy. And after listening to this masterclass, trust me, you are going to want more. I still decided to do an affirmation of the week. So I'm going to read to you the affirmation that I wrote for you this week, that I prayed over for you this week. And then the next thing you'll hear is Cathy live during the Prosper Summit 2025. This week's affirmation is divine disruptions are a sacred part of my journey, and I trust that they are God's way of getting unexpected blessings to me. Even when plans shift or doors close, I know now that it's not rejection. It's redirection towards something greater than I ever imagined. I choose to release control and lean into faith, believing that every interruption holds purpose, protection, provision, and power. What feels delayed is often being divinely aligned, and I am open to receiving the blessings that come through the unexpected. With peace in my heart, I embrace divine disruptions, knowing they are not detours, but part of the divine design for my destiny. Declare with me today divine disruptions are a sacred part of my journey. Without further ado, here is Cathy Heller's live masterclass from the Prosper Summit, which I am calling Divine Disruptions. We're going to have a conversation with my girl, Cathy Heller. Welcome, Cathy.
Oh my gosh. I love you. I love you. I love you. I feel like an elf when Will Ferrell's like, I love you. But I just love Patrice so much and she's so gorgeous. And I was literally feeling tears well up when Floyd was just speaking. To see a man so strong and vulnerable and cool, I'm just like, yes, I love this community. And I love all the people gathered here. I love how often the words of God and the divine just kind of come off of the mouths of the people that you bring in, because I think that's where Patrice and I really meet, is having so much faith, and everything, obviously, everything good flows from that. So I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to dive into all the goodness. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's start even with what you heard Amy say. We talk about the boulder effect here, Cathy. And so we're trying to be people. The boulder effect for us is, what would our lives look like if the first time we heard the whisper or the pebble, we got the pebble, hey, it's time to pivot. It's time to shift. It's time to do something different than maybe you've always been known for. What if we didn't wait until the boulder fell on us? What if we could shift at the pebble? Because the pebble doesn't hurt. It's kind of that first nudge that says, Kate Northrup was here earlier. I know we love Kate. And Kate was talking about how sometimes we will, when we are betraying ourselves, not fully living into or stepping into what we say we desire, how it feels in the body. And a lot of times we don't even recognize what we're feeling because it's a pebble. It's not that bad, or, oh, it's a little discomfort, but it's not horrible. I can stay here longer. I can stay in the marriage that doesn't serve me longer. I can stay at the job that despises me longer, or that I despise. I could stay here longer. And so we keep betraying. And so Amy made a brave choice to, on Monday, say, I'm out of here. But now it's the what's next. And you are queen of the manifestation and the what's next and all the things. So let's just start with that. When you find yourself in a place where, in order to get to what's next professionally, you may need to do some things personally, where do you begin?
It's such a beautiful, beautiful question, because we get so distracted from our soul assignment, don't we? There's so many ways that we just get pulled away from, why did we choose to come to this world? What are we here to do? And so I just want to start by saying, after college, I went on a trip to Jerusalem. I thought I was going to be there for 3 weeks. I stayed there for 3 years. I learned so much. I feel like the software program in my mind, so to speak, it was like Control Alt Delete, clear cache, upload a whole new way of processing the universe. And my dear rabbi who lives in the old city of Jerusalem said to me, you're a masterpiece, you're a piece of the master, and you're someone because you're some of the one. Okay, so first of all, that's where we got to start. Okay, that's who you are, right? When I left Jerusalem, I moved to Los Angeles because I had this whisper in my heart that I wanted to be a songwriter. And I came here filled spiritually. And so sure enough, because energy is obviously all that we're offering each other, I got a record deal, Interscope, and I was sitting with Lady Gaga. She was recording Paparazzi. I was like, she's good. This is going to work out for her. Anyway, I got dropped from that label 6 weeks later. So I was like, all right, God, what's up? What are we doing here? And then I got signed to Atlantic Records, and I was writing this record, and I got dropped from Atlantic. So then I'm 25 years old. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm out. I guess the dream that you put in my heart is not practical. So I got a real job, okay? And I start working for this guy who was a real estate mogul. He bought $100 million shopping centers, as if that's like good for me, as if that's like why I wanted to move out of my parents' home and go become more myself. No, it was just, I was standing in line at the Cheesecake Factory. He's standing in front of me. I just got dropped from my label. He's like, you've got a good personality. Come work for me. I'm like, perfect. I'll make real money and do something boring, which is what you do when you're an adult. And so I worked for him for 3 years, and I was actually kind of good at it. And then my soul started doing that thing where it was like, hey, what's up? You're miserable. So one day I'm standing in the office, headed to the elevator, and I see the reflection of myself in the elevator doors, and I go, who is that girl? Because that's not me. I'm wearing like a suit with like high heels, and I'm like, so I call my rabbi in Jerusalem, and he's like, you ever see a guitar that's not being used? It's just collecting dust? That's you right now. That is not what God put on you. You're not meant to collect dust in the corner. You're not using your gifts. So I quit my job, and my parents, who'd been divorced, we grew up with very little money. They're like, what are you doing? We can't give you anything. You're like, you had a job. Now you don't have a job. Go back to the job. And I was like, but you see, here's the thing. I'm dying inside. So if I'm dying inside, this can't be my path. Anyway, I decided to ask a question, which is a good question, which is there any other way I can use my gift? And when you start to open your heart, right, to what else is possible, what happens? Possibility shows up. So I wound up writing music for TV shows like Grey's Anatomy and Switched at Birth and Younger and McDonald's commercials. And you probably heard my songs all over that. And I made $350,000 a year. And then I was featured in all these magazines. Anyway, long story short, 10 years later, I started a podcast, which is so interesting because I moved to LA to use my voice. And as soon as I started that podcast, God bless that podcast. And I wound up realizing that my voice that I knew I was meant to use was actually meant to be used to help other people find their voice. And what I'm here to say is that you have such bigger dreams than checking off the boxes. Your dream is to truly be in conversation with the divine and fully find the potential that is inside of you, that your work doesn't feel like a job. You just feel like you're on mission, you're on assignment, you're on point. And when I got the whisper that it was time to leave that job, was it practical? No. Did I have a fallback plan? No. Did I have parents who could help me? Nope. But what I knew to be true is that when you step in, that's when the sea splits. You don't wait for the miracle. You become available for the miracle because you are there to receive what's really yours, not some little crumbs on the floor, which is all the things that well-meaning people tell you when you're growing up. Just do this. Just do it like this. How many people have you ever met that checked all the boxes, went to college, have a decent 401k? They're miserable. I'm not saying you're definitely miserable if you do that. Some people have the job that also does all those things and they love it. They're singing down the halls every day. But a lot of people decided to abandon themselves 1,000 miles down the road because what they told themselves was one of two lies. It's not possible, what I really want to do, or I'm not enough. That's for somebody else. What I'm here to say is the dreams that wind up being your dreams are the ones that chase you back. And when you set down trying to fit yourself into the mold that people tell you is like responsible, and you decide you don't answer to anyone but God, you don't answer to anyone but your soul. When you go to sleep at night, your only question is, did I live my assignment today? If that is the only question that you care about answering, He will provide the path, because that is what it is. And I will tell you, people think that they want to be successful. And people write books about it, but you want something more than success. You want significance. And the only way you find significance is when you honor thyself and you know that you are being the instrument that God put you here to be. I was not designed to sit in some cubicle and work for somebody else's dream while he's on a golf course selling pieces of real estate. Like, that's not my job. My job, I knew I didn't have the whole story figured out, but I knew I had a voice. And I knew I was meant to use it. Am I so grateful that I didn't wind up being a recording artist? Of course. Where would I be today? On some tour, we're singing the same 12 songs. Instead, we've done 1,000 episodes of a podcast. I've sat with Patrice multiple times. I've gotten to sit with Tony Robbins, Marianne Williamson, Deepak Chopra. My podcast becomes a vehicle for people to hear their own voice. That was the whisper, but He doesn't give you the whole thing. He gives you the whisper. That's all you get. But here's the thing about the whisper. That's all that you need, because the fun of the life journey is watching yourself begin to manifest in real time this beautiful, unbelievable gift, which sort of comes into form as you take one step, one intentional, clear, soul-aligned step. You want it that way. If you would come to the world at 0 years old and everything's already created and done, you'd actually be a little bit bored, right? You made a deal with God that you were going to come into the world and you together were going to co-create based upon you starting to find. It's like a game. It's like a puzzle. But the question is, what does my soul need me to remember today? And when that is the question, I guarantee you will manifest the answer, because what you're looking for, you will find it. And so much of what's happening here is that the person you really are, you just put her in the corner and you decide to be the person that you're not, that everyone told you you should be. when really your soul is dying because it's like, you have so much potential. You want to unleash all the real power that is within you. That is the part of you that is channeling something that's bigger than yourself. It's a wisdom bigger than you. It's a love bigger than you. It's an enthusiasm bigger than you. And that comes when we stop trying to fit into everybody's box and we unleash something that we just become an instrument for, which is God's light and God's love. And anyone who walks that way, here's the goodness. It doesn't matter the outcome. Because when you live a day like that, I used to feel this way. When I quit the job in the real estate world, which was only 2 years, I remember feeling like, even though I wasn't able to buy myself spicy tuna rolls for a minute, and I wasn't able to go to get my nails done as often or whatever the heck I could do, I used to go to sleep feeling like there is no greater abundance than feeling that you are living your life true to yourself. There is no greater abundance. And you know that. How many people do you know that have that? Right? Because of the money. Is it the money, or is it the feeling of the lightness of your own being? Is it the feeling of being good and right with yourself? Is it the feeling of sitting on a park bench with a little paper bag lunch and you feel like the richest person in the world because life is yours? This is your life, right? And you are soul directed. When you are that kind of person, you know what happens? You are so magnetic that the amount of opportunities, the amount of things that come right to you. And when I started a podcast, P.S., I was 37. I had 3 kids at the time. My youngest was 3 weeks old. I started it in my closet, put the laptop on top of the shoe rack. And the Talmud says that words from the heart enter the heart. I didn't have a strategy. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have social media. I just decided one day, I heard this whisper, just start sharing from your heart. And overnight, within a year, we had 1 million downloads. Now there's 55 million downloads. We've written 2 books. I was a C student. I barely graduated from high school. I went to college on academic probation. And now I make multiple millions of dollars just pouring into people. None of it feels like a job. None of it feels like work. But I had to set down what felt like the realistic plan in order to let something bigger come through me. And the truth of what I'm saying is, and I say it in this book that Patrice is so generous to do a whole book club around using the book this month. We think that we want piles of things. What you really want is wholeness within yourself. What you really want is to feel connected to your soul and talk to God every morning. And I will tell you, the best meeting of your day, most important one, you got to meet with God in the morning. And you got to say, right size my dreams. Tell me again what my real dream is. And your real dream is to be a blessing to other people because you become a blessing to yourself. And what happens when you are in that space? Everything you touch turns to gold because people want to be right up near you. And that's when the portal opens. And so I've just always continued to be directed in that way. And I am just in awe of the bounty and the ease in which everything is a joy and it's fun and it's a blessing. And the money, yes, we flew home last night from Florida. We flew mint. I do enjoy it. I get to sleep and lay down. It's great. But other than that, that one perk, honestly, I don't have a lot of jewelry on. I'm not that interested. What I'm interested in is what I really came to this world for, the deepest connections, the most beautiful thoughts going on in here, and being willing to discern and not accept the things that people say that are straight up lies about what is possible for me or them or this world. I'm like, right? This is a sacred space. And the last thing I'll say is you're not here to protect your energy. You're here to project your energy. And when you stop walking around giving everybody power around you, you don't have to protect your energy because guess what? You are directed by the creator of this universe and you project that energy. And now that's a vibe. Watch what happens when you become that electromagnetic because you are so connected to the truth, you will open every door. I mean, this is why Patrice and I are friends. It's so obvious now. I know you get it. I know you get it. But like she and I'll just say it about her. There is no room this woman would walk in that the greatest possible opportunity in that room would not be hers by the time she walked out. And it's not because of how pretty she is, because we know that. It's not because of what she's wearing or how good of a mom she is, which is all true. It's her heart. It's how much power is in her resonance. The most powerful thing you have is you tuning in to the power within your soul. When that's lit up, it's like you don't need strategies. You just move and the world moves for you. Because what is everyone really looking for? That. And what happens when you're in a room with someone like that? You direct everybody right back to what's inside of them. So it's collective abundance all of a sudden. So anyway, I'm going to stop ranting because Patrice and I should just open a church. We just can't stop talking when we start, but I'm going to stop.
Oh my gosh. My friend, that was not a rant. That was definitely, we went to church, to mosque, to synagogue, to whatever you want to call it. That was beautiful. There were so many gems dropped. I want to go back to looking in the mirror and saying, who was that girl? Not just what you had on at that time, not just because you were in the business suit, because I've been in that place. I remember when I first started, Cathy, and people were like, if you want to be taken serious in finance, you need to put on a black suit or a brown suit or green suit. You guys have heard me tell the story. I had on suits, pantyhose, pearls, and kitten heels. And I remember looking in the mirror. I was actually speaking at a college and I was myself. So I was telling jokes and moving around the stage, and I could tell the kids were looking at me like, is she 29 or 65? I don't know what's happening here. There's a disconnect. She doesn't look like how she's moving. There's something off. And I remember feeling like I had on a clown suit. I felt like I was wearing a costume and like I had literally put on someone else's life. And I remember saying in prayer, I said, God, if this is who I have to be, I don't want it. If this is what purpose has to, like, I don't want this. I don't want to not feel like it's okay to be myself. And so there was the costume, which it sounded like you were wearing too. But then there was also that other part of you that feels like it's literally dying, where I had on the costume, but I also was reserving my speech. Like I was holding, and for me in my body, it feels like my throat kind of tightening up when I'm not being myself. So for you, in addition to the costume, when you looked in the mirror and you were at the elevator and you're like, who is this girl? What did that actually mean outside of what you had on?
Everything that you just said. And I want to connect your question to what Floyd was saying. And this is just my interpretation of what he was saying, but I want to connect it. And Patrice and I both have daughters. I've got 3 of them. And it's been a few minutes since you've watched Moana, but I know you must have watched it because I'm sure Reagan saw it 50 times. I want to mention this for a second, because this is how I felt when I was going to leave my job. And I'm just using Moana because I have 3 little girls. But in that movie, she wants to go beyond the reef. You guys remember it? Type of 1 if you've seen it. You're like, I don't have this reference, Kath. I'm sorry. I'm like, okay. It's really good, by the way. So in this movie, like a lot of movies, okay, the hero's journey for her is she grows up on this island and she wants to go beyond this reef. And everyone's like, why are you doing that? You're going to die. No one can do that. And also, aren't we enough? Like, just do what we do, right? That's like the whole thing. And she has to choose. She has to choose. And there's this feeling of, is she being disloyal to her fam because she's going to go do something that they are telling her, this is not for you. This is for you. What's right here? This should be enough for you. This should be enough for you. And what I'm saying to you is the hero's journey usually, and this is the reason I mentioned Floyd, because he talked about the space, okay? And he also talked about what people will say. We don't recognize that when we're growing up, because the people around us have certain beliefs and certain limiting beliefs, subconsciously, we feel in order to be loyal and to be approved by and to be loved by those people, we need to stay inside of a lane. And when we go beyond it, they start to get a little triggered, right? And they're saying, who do you think you are to go do that? Or why do you think what we have isn't enough? Because if they were to actually truly consider what you're doing, they might have to question what they've done. They might have to see for themselves what they denied themselves. And that is so painful that they would rather tell you're crazy rather than see it as a gift that you are now going beyond the reef And you've just created a possibility for them that they didn't know they could take for themselves. And so my story, and I'm sure we all have versions of this, when my parents broke up, my dad was like cheating, living a double life, all the gross stuff. My mom tried to commit suicide. I know that's a lot for a Wednesday morning, but that was my story. And my mom was in and out of a facility, which was really hard. And we didn't have any money to pay the electric bill. Thank God I had a grandmother who had an amazing grandmother, me, who was there for me, hooked it up, was my kind of like steadfast person. And I think, by the way, that's why so many of us are so wise. We were raised by an older generation that like really got it, right? Amen to that. And she came from nothing. So she was always like, oh, that doesn't matter. Your circumstances don't matter. Let's go, right? So I had that too. But when I decided to go to Jerusalem and find God, my mom was like, what do you do? She, obviously, a person who falls into that level of depression, was missing a relationship with feeling a sense of purpose and love from God. She didn't have that. So that threatened her. And then when I moved out to Los Angeles and said, I'm going to go get a record deal, she's a singer and she's really talented. She was like, you're not going to do that. That doesn't happen for you. That only happens for lucky people. Why on earth would you think that you could do that? No one's going to have you. She was so threatened that she's like, I don't want to speak to you anymore, because I was going to move out to LA. Right. And then when I quit that job, she was like, well, now you're really nuts. That was the only way. No one can pay you for you. No one can provide provision for you. And I was like, oh, you don't even understand who provides provision for me. You don't know where my abundance comes from, because it only comes from one source, and I'm out of here. But I am telling you, the walking of the plank for me was being able to go beyond all of this stuff, right? Because like Elphaba, here's another movie reference, it's the same thing, right? She winds up saying, if that's love, that comes at way too high a cost. And that's what this is. There is a moment when you don't realize that the love you want to get from the people around you, you believe it costs you being completely and totally fully yourself. But when you decide to fully be unleashed and not dim your light, now there's actually a true possibility for love, because love by definition is unconditional. So if you're totally yourself, and PS, liberation is never a one-way street. So if you fully liberate yourself, you've now created a possibility for the people in your life to also choose to liberate themselves. And relationships get to feel different. And so now I'm 45, for my relationship with my mother, it's totally different. And she, against her own probably wishes, she has grown a ton. And I stopped enabling it. That took years. For like 20 years or so, I would just do all my stuff and then provide for her, right? Even though there were, you know what I mean? And then eventually it was like, okay, mom, this is exactly what I'm providing. And the rest of it is on you, because you got this. And this is what I'm not available for in my space. Here's what you can't say to me. These are the kinds of conversations we're not going to have. I know, Patrice, you and I have shared that in common with certain people. But my point is, my friend Alex Benayan wrote a book called The Third Door. He interviewed in this book Maya Angelou, Lady Gaga, Warren Buffett, Steven Spielberg, all these leaders. And he asked them basically, how did you find your way to where you are? And in the end, he decided to name the book The Third Door. Why? Because he said everybody's life is like a nightclub. Most people are waiting in line at door number 1, and the line's around the block, and they're just hoping to get picked to get in, and most people don't get in. That's line number 1. He goes, door number 2 is if your last name is VIP, like Kardashian, you just got in, but you didn't have to do anything. Your name is on the VIP list. He goes, but these folks, the Maya Angelou, the Steven Spielberg, the Lady Gaga, he goes, here's what they had. They didn't have line 1 or line 2. They went through the door number 3, the third door. And I said to him, why did you name it that? And he said, because every place has a third door. There's a third way in, and they found it. But here's what's so interesting. He goes, the hardest part of the third door, it's not finding the third door. Every building has a side door. There's always a way in, right? He goes, the hardest part for all of these people, you ready? Was leaving the line for door number 1. The moment they decided to leave that line. Because standing in that line for door number 1, everyone around you says, who do you think you are? You're not going to leave. Don't you know what you're worthy of? It's only this much. Don't you know what we taught you about what actually makes a good person? It's this. Don't you be too big for yourself. Don't you go do that. Don't you? And you're like, at some point, I'm getting out of this line. That is the hardest one. You got to break away. And the people we look up to, whether it's Michael Jordan or whoever you look up to in your life, right? By definition, the reason you look up to somebody you look up to is because they stand out. And when someone stands out, there's this thing that has to happen. You know what it is? They don't fit in. You can't have it both ways. You want to stand out, you're going to have to walk the plank. You can't fit in. But here's what happens when you choose to stand out and not fit in. You fit in with people like Patrice. You have a new crew. And she and I, a lot of the same friends, and some other people that probably we could introduce to each other. But the thing we all have in common is when we got to the other side of that plank, we were all there waiting for each other. Welcome.
Amen.
I see you. Right? And so you're not alone. You're just amongst people who choose to be themselves and be individuals. And there's enough space for all of us over there. So I think a little bit of what Floyd was saying is that, and it is triggering, right? I was saying to my students the other day, we have 1,000 people in my coaching program, and they struggle with some of the same things. And this woman says to me, I don't know. She says, sometimes when I hear you say that, like I mentioned that we flew back in Mint and how much I loved getting those 6 hours of sleep because I was a 6-hour flight. And she goes, I have to just say it out loud because I know you'll help me with this. When I walk through Mint on JetBlue to my seat and coach, I like hate the people in Mint. I like judge them. And I go, isn't that interesting? You were taught to do that. How on earth are you going to have more money when you judge people with money? How on earth are you going to let yourself have money when you think of yourself that means you have to choose being a good person or a bad person? I go, how about this thought? There's nice people in the back and there's nice people in the front. How about it has nothing to do with the money? How about it has to do with their choice of character? How about the money is not the thing that determines it? There can be rude people in the back and rude people in the front, kind people. I go, how about this? I sit on that plane thinking I could be one of the most abundant people on the plane and also the nicest. And I gave a compliment to everybody that I saw. And why? Because I'm the recipient of that. I love giving out good energy, right? So we got to change that. And where does that little subconscious program come from when you judge the people with the provision? It's the people in the line who, instead of choosing for themselves that they could have so much that God's already put in escrow for you, you just decide to judge the people who decided to receive it. But money, I'll just say one last thing. Money, the Talmud says money is like rain in a garden. If rain falls on weeds, weeds grow. Rain falls on roses, roses grow. So money is an activator. Whatever you are, you will be more of with that money. If you are a person with integrity, what are you going to do with money? Be a steward of it. Enjoy your life, provide, do good things, be responsible, invest in things, do all the things. If you're a person with no character, you're going to do more bad stuff, whether you have the money or you don't. And there's plenty of jails filled with people who've got lots of money and did bad things with money. And there's plenty of jails filled with people who had no money. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is what is inside that gets to become more activated through the energetic resources that we find ourselves having. So that allows you the permission to be as rich as you want to be and get to be more of who you were put in the world to be and more of a steward. And that's a little bit of also what's in this book, because until we set down the judgment around money, you're not going to let yourself have it.
Oh, so good. Cathy, what happens when you are in a season where, you've gone to the third door and you've experienced some level of success there? Because we have people who are pivoting, right? You've experienced some level of success, and now you find yourself at a new nightclub, and it's just a new season. Do you have to keep choosing third doors at new nightclubs over and over again? How do you share that with someone who may have experienced some level of success, and now they're stepping into a new space and they feel I'm back in Gen Pop?
I feel like the thing we have to remember is and then I know this is really hard to do, but the outcome of things is none of our business. That's God's business. Okay. And you came here for whatever soul curriculum you're really actually seeking. And God is so good that you'll be thinking you want something. And if it's not really what your soul wants, it'll lead you to the thing that brings you back to what you actually deeply desire. And so what I mean is, there's what's going on, right? And then there's actually that everybody is being cast to help you rise into who you're supposed to be. And when you remember that that's the way everything is, your job then at every moment is to choose to find what is the highest and best way for me to show up in this conversation, to set a boundary over here, to move into greater possibility over here. So whether you're just beginning again new at something, or you're at the top of the heap with something, you're still looking for the same thing, which is where's my edge and where am I meant to get the most growth? And that's actually what the whole thing is about. And so they're both really helpful and interesting, because if you're at the top of the heap, maybe the new beginning to that is you might be over here doing something really well, but now you've got a team, and your new thing is how you're going to lead. So you're still new. And if you're over here and you're new because you just started something new, now again, it's like, okay, where is the way in which you're going to be surrendered and also showing up to your fullest every single day without being in this place where you're in scarcity, like, why didn't this happen already? Or what is that? So it really doesn't matter what the scenery looks like. It matters that all the time, you know what you're after, you want to get the stretch. You go to a yoga class, it doesn't matter if someone's doing inversions or down dog or it's your first class. Where's your growth? If it's holding a downward dog for 7 seconds, you just had a better class than someone who's standing on her head, because for you and your hamstrings, that was what you needed. That's your stretch. It's not relevant what everyone else is doing. It's like you every single day have an assignment. How am I supposed to get the stretch, be more of myself, utilize whatever's happening in my life to grow into who I'm supposed to be more of today? So none of that stuff to me matters, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Earlier, we were talking about definitions of prosperity, but also the opposites of prosperity. And I was saying, this is the posture every day, like, it's to open up your hands and just allow things to flow, because we are so restricted when we have these ideas that, oh, in order for this to work, it has to look like this. It has to come through this person. It has to be on this timeline. If it doesn't work within 7 days, I'm going to give up and I'm going to go to the next thing. And if this doesn't happen, closed hands can't receive. That's right, Amy. And this is the posture. And whenever I feel myself trying to push or force or strive or get a certain result, the physical thing that I do is I shake my head and I hands up, so that whatever God wants to put in my hands, I'm available to. And I open my hands because I want it to flow through me. Nothing I even get is supposed to just stay here. I'm just a conduit. So as things flow to me, my goal is to really allow it to flow out to the people that I serve and the people who are assigned to me. But having that reminder, like you said, doesn't really matter what the season is. It's really, what is our posture?
I want to say something to that. It's so beautiful. I maybe mentioned this story to you, but I want to say this because it's really on point to what you just said. So I was a songwriter for 10 years and I made a decent amount of money writing music for TV shows and ads and movies. And then I started this podcast. And I actually started the podcast because a songwriter student of mine, I started teaching a workshop to songwriters, and she said her husband worked in podcasting and I should start a podcast. And I was like, I'll just try that. Why not? And I was totally new at it. Okay. And I want you to hear this. So now I went from being successful at something, like back down over here, starting again. But I love that, right? It's like the new game, the new thing to figure out, the new journey. I go to this event. It's called Podcast Movement. Patrice, you probably know this story. Yeah.
That's where my podcast started. 2017. I went only 3 weeks before was the first time I had ever heard of it. That's how Redefining Wealth started.
Where were you at? Were you in Anaheim?
Yes. Were you at that
there? And that's so funny. Okay, you're going to love this story. So I was there. I had just started my podcast 2017. I cannot believe that we didn't meet at that conference. So I go to this conference and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just figuring it out. So I'm walking around and everyone's got business cards. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a business card. I'm just, what am I doing? But I'm just having fun. And I'm at this like little kind of meet and greet moment. And I turn to my friend and I'm like, okay, so what do you think is like the main agenda for everybody here? And she says, everybody here wants to meet the Apple Podcast people because Apple Podcast people are in the room And if you meet someone from Apple Podcasts, they could feature you on the homepage of Apple. And at that time, it still is this way. Apple is pretty much still the hub for podcasts. But at that time, it was like Spotify wasn't yet really a thing with podcasts. So it was like, if you got featured on Apple, you could get a lot of exposure and a lot of subscribers. Okay, fine. So I start to feel kind of like this again, because I was like, oh, so I have to meet the right people. And oh my gosh, I don't have any business cards. And I start feeling myself, like my heart's racing and I don't feel like myself. You know that feeling. So I do what I'm known to do. And I said, you know what? I think that the first panel starts in like an hour and I don't really feel like being in this meet and greet. So I'm going to come back and I'll meet you in an hour. My friend says, fine, I'll meet you. I'll save you a seat. Great. I left that hotel. We were in Anaheim. I walk like 2 blocks down to a different hotel, walk into the lobby, and I order an iced tea. And all of a sudden, I just felt good. I was just having a nice moment, drinking an iced tea. My nervous system's good. I'm enjoying life, all is well. This guy walks in, he sits down next to me. We both have the same badge on from the podcast conference. And so he goes, oh, are you at that podcast conference also? And I said, yeah. He goes, I hate networking events. They stress me out. I said, that's how I feel. So we start talking. I ask him where he's from. He says, Chicago. I go, oh, my husband's family's from Chicago. I love the Midwest. I love Midwestern people. We start talking about the Midwest. 45 minutes later, he hands me his business card. He goes, you're like the nicest person I met. I want to give you a tour of the office. If you're up for it, we should connect. Here's my card. He's the head of Apple Podcasts. And so Patrice threw this word out. Cathy's like, the queen of manifestation. So, I'm a God person. And so I love teaching manifestation because I teach it the way I teach it, which I don't know the hocus pocus that other people teach. It might be good. It might not be. I haven't really looked into it so much. I never saw The Secret or anything like that. But what I can tell you is how I teach manifestation is your job is to constantly go back to where is my well-being? Where can I put my hands open again? And when I walked out of that conference room for the meet and greet, I just set it all down again. And when I set it all down, what happened? I went back to wholeness. And when you're in a state of wholeness, what do? Manifest everything. Because wholeness is what creates what it is you actually wanted, was to feel whole, okay? And sure enough, I walked out of the conference and sat right next to the person that everybody was trying to meet in the conference who had already left. I then got featured by Apple. I then got mentored by that person. It's now 8 years later. He left Apple. He's now my podcast producer. I've had a whole journey with him. And this is what I mean when I tell people, I say, you can have everything you want as long as you set down this one belief that you can't have it. And what I mean is God didn't create it where it has to be hard. There's no hustle involved. You just got to be like this, hands open. I'm good right now. I'm fully satisfied right now. How many times in your day do you go, I'm fully satisfied? Well, if you don't, something's wrong because you got air in your lungs and there's 59 shades of green outside your window and there's probably an iced tea for you to drink and you're good. Because when we are in a state of awe and prayer, you have 5 minutes, go pray for somebody. That'll make you feel good. What I'm saying is those 3 years I spent in Jerusalem, that was everything for me. Because once I got to LA and it was the city of hustle, I didn't get on that train. I just didn't get on the train. So the train I got on actually led me to every stop. And it was an express train, right? So this is all what you just said is like you go from this to this and you meet it every time. Because really what you're after anyway is not the person you're trying to meet. It's the feeling of being like this. So if you just give yourself that feeling of being like this all the time, you don't even need anything to happen. That's the whole point. Is I've never been like, I need to make $1 million. I need to have a best-selling book. It's like when we wrote this book and we met with Simon & Schuster in July, the book came out in December. I had a meeting with everyone on the team. I'm like, I need everyone on this team, the publicist, and I go, here's my mission statement. I'm allergic to trying for bestseller lists. I wrote a book that I really am proud of. I'm putting the book in the world. Whatever happens is God's business. I don't want to hear a conversation about, you need to do this. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I'm interested in, did I write the thing I was meant to write? And who do I know? How do I know? Is it supposed to go to one person? That's good for me. I'm out. I'm out of that. And most of what happens in your mind that stresses you out all day is other people telling you all the things that you got to be like this about. None of that. What you got to be like this about is nothing. All you really have to do is say, in every moment, where's my heart? In every moment, do I know what a blessing I can be to myself and to others by being like this? And then you're like this, and then everything comes to you because it already came to you because you got what you were really looking for, which is ease and wholeness. So that is kind of what my entire book is about, what you just did. But I think that story really illustrates it.
Cathy, I have never read to the community from someone's book this much. It's like in the last several days, every time something has come up, I've been like, and we have a story for that.
Oh my God.
Today I read about Mignon Franco, the cupcake.
Isn't she amazing? I can't with her.
Yeah, and Win Clayball, I don't know if you know Win, he told me about her 3 or 4 days before I end up reading about her in your book. I read about Sherry Salata, who I know we both love. I met Sherry through you, but I didn't know the story. I read about her in the live yesterday. I think last week I read something else. It's one of those books, which is why I chose it for book club, that literally it's like I read a story and then I work with someone, I coach someone, and I'm like, oh, I have the story for you. Let's turn to page 137. Let's go. It is just so amazing and yummy. I absolutely love the book. And yes, if Don't Be Attached was a person, if there was a meme for Don't Be Attached, it would have Cathy Heller's face
Aww.
all over it. You have single-handedly, and I tell you this every time I see you, I can't stop giving you flowers because you've been such a blessing to me for 5 years now. But every time I think about making something hard, I'm like, Cathy would not advise this. And I go back to what brings me joy. How can I make this fun? Which, Floyd, that's what you referenced. How can I make this fun? How can I just enjoy it? How can I just give from my heart? How can I just be myself? How can I just let it be easy? Why am I putting all this extra stuff on it when that's not genuinely what I desire? And we only do that, right, when we think our definition of prosperity and wealth and success has to be somebody else's. When we think it has to look the way they define it. This is not successful unless you hit this number, unless you're a bestseller, unless you're this or that, when really it's the joy in just doing it. That's what I have felt. It's the joy in me just doing it.
And can I just say, because you happen to say I give you flowers, I mentioned I was going to talk to you today, and my husband said, isn't she the one that sent us that plant when my mom passed away? I don't know if you remember 4 years ago, his mom passed.
Oh, I can't believe he even remembered that. Ah, yeah. Tell him I said hi. Yeah.
Thing is that, like, Patrice, I know so many people, and we watered that tree every day. We think that our minds are such liars, and it's like, I'm so attached because here's all the things I need to get, and why do I need to get them? So I feel like I'm finally enough, or I feel like I'm successful, or I feel like then I'm not lacking if I can just attach to all these things outside of me that I need, the achievement, the money, and it's like, what you do is like, where could I show up? Where could I give something today? And then your wealth is in the purpose that you leave behind every day. That is what it is. So yeah, it's like really generous people, they're not so busy thinking about what they need in order to feel secure and whole within from the outside. So therefore, they just wind up using the bandwidth they have to be a blessing for everybody else. The most impressive person in a room is the most loving. The person in a room who's the most impressive, no one cares how much money you make. No one cares where you went to college. They care how much space you create for everybody else. And so when we are in a state of wholeness, that literally, that nervous system, then everybody can feed off of that. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's so much easier than we make it. It's so much easier. And it's all coming from what I said at the beginning. If you don't know that you are some of the one, if you don't know that you're a masterpiece, a piece of the master, then you look outside yourself all day long and hold on so tight to what you need to happen in order to feel like something on the inside. But when you know who you are and who God made you to be, you get to set down everything else because you don't need it. And then when you don't need it, you and just being you is the blessing. And you're already there. You're satisfied. You're at ease. Now your only question is, where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And how can I be the biggest blessing today? And that's the richness. And then he provides a million opportunities for you to connect with people, enjoy your life, and use your gifts in ways you can't believe. There could be so much provision just using your gifts, being yourself. So if you want to make
that's the point, Cathy. The reason I think we don't stay in that is because we don't believe that it's enough.
That's right. And that's because the people who we loved growing up probably modeled, they didn't feel like that was enough. And so they modeled that for us and we bought it. We bought it. So if you want to make a quantum leap in your business or a quantum leap in your life, the quantum leap is within. It's coming to the power within your heart. I hosted a retreat 3 weeks ago, and unbeknownst to me or anyone there, the morning we all got there, these are mostly 60 strangers that didn't know each other. An hour and a half into the retreat, a woman sitting there got a phone call that her mother died. And that is so significant. And she made a call and got the next flight out, but it wasn't for a few hours. And so I said, can we be here for you right now? And everyone in that room was able to gather in a circle and open their hearts. And I said, what was your mother's name? And I said, can we all just send a prayer to this soul? We're walking her to the gate right now. And we're all in tears. And I said, what an honor that you just elevated this retreat so much by letting us take part in something so beautiful. And I said to everyone there, there were 60 women there. I go, you've never met this woman. Her mother lives in Indonesia. She's flying to Indonesia tonight. And you have this much love for a soul you've never met because you were just so significant. You could be that significant in this circle right now. You were needed here right now to provide for this girl in the most painful moment of her life. What a gift that you got to show up and be that for somebody. That's powerful. So I don't know. We finished the retreat. I said, what did you think you came here for? I thought I came to grow my business, but actually I just feel better than ever. And I feel more rich than ever. It's like, yeah. And now you're going to go in the world and just watch how you start to manifest so much from the power within you, right? From how much you can give, just being connected to the wholeness, the enoughness that you can be there for somebody in a moment like that. And bring her to tears with your kindness and compassion. That's the most impressive thing you got. Where's that? You don't think?
Because in a moment like that, nobody cares about your bank account. In a moment like that, nobody cares about how many leads are in your funnel. In a moment like that, no one cares about your opt-in. They don't care about your project at work. That is not all that this is about. And when you can show up for people at those times, whether it is sending a card, a text message, I'm thinking about you, a generous word, a plant, a tree, something that lets people know that they are seen, they are loved, they are heard, they are thought of, like that is wealth. Like those are the things that I remember. Those are the things. That's why your husband remembered my name. And I didn't do it for that. But when you think about that, it's like, look at the relationship though we built over the years and how it's been mutually beneficial. I've spoken at your event, come to your things, you're here, right? That is wealth. I'm so relationally wealthy because I just want to show up and love on people. So when I need love, people love on me. Even when I don't think I need love, people love on me. I get the most random messages, random things in the mail, and it always seems random and also, yes, so divine and at the appropriate right time when they could not have known that I would need it. And I know that is just like, that's the law. That's the reciprocity. It's the showing up in that way, having no expectation of anything in return from that person. But, it's just that energy of, yeah, you put it out there. And you're always supported. You're always covered.
Did you not enjoy this masterclass, you are welcome. I'm just going to say you're welcome in advance because I know you want to thank me for having access to such a powerful training. Can you believe we had 4 trainings, including Cathy's, plus sessions that I taught over 2 days for Prosper Summit? When I tell you it was just incredible, but Prosper Summit is gone. But what you can still get access to is Cathy Heller's Manifest Your Most Abundant Year workshop. Go receive those lessons with all the heart and intention that she puts into it, because everything about her, and you could hear how much I admire her. She admires me. We adore one another. I think she's a phenomenal teacher, and it's a blessing to be able to learn from her. It truly is. So go get it. patricewashington.com/abundant. Now, originally, this was supposed to be our last week of the podcast for this season, but because I wanted to share divine disruptions with you and hopefully bless you, I will actually be back next week with our final episode for this season. Reagan is graduating. My daughter is graduating, and we're going to spend some time this summer. And I just want to, as I said last week, go at the pace of peace. So next week is when I will talk about some things I won't go back to, and also give you, a sneak peek into what you can expect when we return in August. And it's okay. You have over 400 episodes. If you want to hear me every week, you could go back and get those replays. Okay. But I'll be back next week. Join us in the Redefining Wealth app, where I continue to go live each and every day. I will still be live there all throughout the summer, not taking any breaks there, but would love to have you. And if you find that you're in the midst of a divine disruption and you are looking for support, I don't know a better community than ours online to get that. So download the Redefining Wealth app. Come on in, get loved on, get loved up, and get ready to continue to live your most abundant life and redefine wealth for yourself. Until next week, I want you to go live your life's purpose, find fulfillment, and keep earning more without ever feeling like you have to chase money. I'll talk to you.